I'm Kendra, and this is Hooked by Happenstance Makes Monday, episode number 14, Surplus. Why surplus this week? Well, according to dictionary.com, surplus is a noun meaning, number one, something that remains above what is used or needed, and number two, an amount, quantity, etc. that it's greater than needed. It is also used as an adjective, meaning being a surplus or being in excess of what is required. Well, a number of the items which I'm going to show you today that I've been working on or have finished this week were inspired by surplus materials I had. I mean, I guess all stash could be deemed surplus because it's extra, it's just there and waiting for your use. But a lot of these things were inspired by actual, like, if I used almost a whole skein in a project, they were my scrap bits. My surplus inspired the end products. And even in one case, I have made a sweater, and the surplus number of skeins is becoming something new. There's like a bird chirping somewhat annoyingly, and I apologize, but I can't control nature. So it's not in your head if you hear that sound, or maybe it's just in my head. I don't know. Let's start with what is off my hook. The first thing that is off my hook is this here, which is a pattern I have designed. I'm going to call it a Bugabee, because it can be any sort of bug, or a bee, a Bugabee, depending on whether or not you use striping yarn or not. This is a sweet roll from Premier Yarns, and the white is actually Red Heart with Love metallic in the color white. And these are left over from a blanket that I made called My Very Simple V-Stitch Blanket, which I will be releasing the pattern for shortly, and the pattern for the Bugabee will be coming out soon as well. But I had this leftover chunk of sweet roll left over, and I didn't want it to go to waste. I didn't know what to do, and I was going to start making like a lovey. So I started at the top, and I'm making this kind of head for a lovey. And then as I'm playing around with it, it took on the shape of a bug, and I really liked it. And so it looked like this, and I was going to make wings, kind of like a butterfly. And then I decided I really liked having stuffed wings because it was something to like hold on to. What I have found from my experience selling at craft shows is that small children like to grab pieces. So like the eyes that stick out, or a pointy tail, or, you know, things that look really awkward, but that makes kids so happy. And that is like their first instinct, is to grab the toy by parts I didn't consider it being grabbed by and poke it at their parents. So, the Bugabee. This is Bugabee number 1. I liked it so well that I made Bugabee number 2. Now this is made out of, not Lion Brand, out of Red Heart Super Saver in the color Monet, and again, the Red Heart with Love metallic for the wings. So I have had this skein in stash. I think I actually bought it, I don't remember if I bought it in California when I was there this winter, or if I got it at Joann's in Manhattan. But either way, I really, really like this color. I think it looks very dragonfly-y. And I've discovered, too, that I really like this particular variegated yarn from Red Heart. I need to play with it in just like a back and forth, like a scarf width, just to see how it pulls up. But the way that the variegation is put into the yarn, like the length of the color repeat, is such that I think that it looks much more like mottled and mixed instead of being kind of like splotchy like a lot of the variegateds turn out. And so this actually might lead to another project I ultimately want to make. I've always wanted to make one of those like stained glass afghans where you basically make these big chunks of variegated, and then you take like black and you edge them, and then you like put them together and it looks like a stained glass effect. But a bunch of the variegateds end up pooling in a way that I don't like. But I think that this Monet color might be perfect. So I was really excited, both with how cute this Bugabee looks. It just keeps staring at me off my little shelf where I've had it this week. But also that it's kind of inspired me to maybe make another project. And speaking of surplus, 2 Bugabees just wasn't enough. What is on my hook right now, I've started a 3rd one, and this is made out of Red Heart Super Saver. I want to say this color is called French Country. They don't sell it locally to me, but I got this on one trip to California. And again, the wings, which just need to be stuffed and added on, and I still need to make the eyes. I made this last night while I was doing some canning. So, that Bugabee is on the hook. Another thing I was working on this week was just trying to make some toys and things to refill out my craft show booth, since I did do a craft show last Saturday and I sold a number of toys. I didn't sell a whole lot, but everything I sold was crocheted toys. I feel like I now need to kind of up that supply, especially of like the mid-range toys. So I started making some doll heads. These are the doll heads that go to the Bibi doll pattern or the Bibi boys pattern. The name of the designer is on the screen. I do make some changes to the bodies of the dolls, but I do the heads exactly to pattern because I just really like this head. So I made 2 of them. They are still awaiting stuffing. But while I was making them, I was having that problem where your heart just really isn't in doing a particular project at a particular moment, even if it's something you usually enjoy doing. These were taking me entirely too long. And it was just because they weren't what I really wanted to be making. What I wanted to make was another Bugabee, but I told myself I needed to do some of the other things I needed to fill in before I could work on this one. Clearly, I gave in at some point. But I did give in and I started making some of my friendly fish pattern, another pattern I really, really enjoy working up. So here is fish body number 1. I believe this is Bonbon of Red Heart Super Saver, and its little fins are made. I still need to make the eyes and sew them on. But I hadn't gotten that far because, well, I had the variegated yarn out and I didn't have the white yarn out at the time. And then this one, which I believe is Mexicana. And I like how the tail actually kind of like squishes up a little on its own, but I think it's just kind of flippy and it looks very fish-like. And I like that it's not, in this case, it's not stuffed, it's not as thick, so it has that good like tail swish. So anyways, body of the fish, 2 fins, still in need of eyes. And because, again, I like to have a surplus apparently, I've started fish number 3. And this is out of Red Heart Super Saver in Banana Berry, which is a favorite of mine for making toys. Banana Berry is a really good gender-neutral toy color if you're looking for one. It appeals very well, I found it shows, across, you know, different kids of different like personalities and also different ages. This is good from babies because they like the bright colors, all the way through like your tween market. If they're picking, you know, toys and things, which I actually sell a decent number to like tween-age kids, which is kind of funny to me. But this color is very appealing. So just, you know, file that under forget unless it's useful for you. Next thing that is on my hook is my Square Deal sweater, which I showed you last week. I'm fairly certain I put more rounds in this after I showed it to you last week, because I think I put some rounds in it while I was editing my podcast. But if not, apologies, you're going to get to see it in its same state. But here is the Square Deal sweater. This is being made out of burnout mosaic in the optimistic colorway, and it is a pattern available for free on the Red Heart website. I'm really enjoying this one. In fact, I had to make myself put it down because I was really enjoying the way it felt, but I needed to work on other things that were not necessarily for me. Because while selfish crafting is good, selfish crafting does not pay bills. So, selfish crafting has to sit by itself. One good thing is when I was cleaning up things, I did find my stitch markers I had made. You may see them, there's a post of them on Instagram. I took a bunch of my first jewelry a while ago, my very first pairs of earrings, and I busted them up. Well, this was not one of my first earrings. This is a safety pin. But I had busted them up and I made stitch markers. Oh, I guess those two flowers, or the flowers, are the only one I have on this one. And then these I had made for a giveaway that never had any entries, so I got to keep them. And I'm very happy about that because I quite enjoy the stitch markers and the bag from said giveaway. So I found a bunch of my stitch markers, which has been very useful, and I will pop one in there so that next week I will know for sure if I've showed you or what I've showed you. There's one more thing that is currently on my hook, and this is being stored in my black flamingo bag. There's one of these flamingo bags left in the Etsy shop if you are interested. One, and then I can make no more because this is some deep stash fabric. It's some of my favorites. Hence the reason one fell off the turnip truck and got to stay with me. But, whoop, I'm just gonna drop things. Let me pick that up. before I go on a hunt to find my J hook, which is what I am using to make this. This is my bamboo Schleich. That's what I'm thinking of it now. It is made out of burlap bamboo, which is what I made my sweater out of last week. And I had a bunch left, and I think even once I'm done with the Schleich, there is a good chance I'm going to have a lot left. But I just made up the pattern as I went along. I had done the edging bit, like with the eyelets, last week while I was at my craft show, and then, oh, I forget what I was doing, but something made me think, oh my goodness, I would really like this particular stitch pattern. So I checked that the mathing would work, and I made it all make sense, and boom, I'm working on a stitch pattern I really enjoy. So this is kind of where it is at. Currently it is not a huge wrap, but it is going to just keep increasing in size because I have a lot of yarn left. I have 3, 5, 8, this is 9 skeins here, and then down here, whoop, don't mind me, I cleaned, so I now know where things are. I have 3, 6, 7, 8. So I have like 17 or 18 skeins of this left. There are 50-gram skeins. And it's a size 5. So, I mean, the skeins don't go huge amounts. But given the stitch pattern I've chosen, they actually are going a little further than I had anticipated. Which is good and bad. So, I will figure it out. I also might ultimately add, I was not going to add anything to like this edge. But I think there is a good chance that I will make the body of it as wide as feels appropriate, and then add like an edging piece to each side. Because it didn't quite end up, even though I had measured around myself, once it started gaining some depth, the width just didn't seem quite as big as I would hope. But, I mean, I'm not a tiny person, so we'll see. But I'm definitely enjoying working on this, and I don't know. Actually, I'm going to say that they don't make burlap bamboo anymore, that it is discontinued, because I bought it from a case sale through the Spin Right e-tent, and the only way you really got those good deals on that stuff was once they were discontinued. So that is my Schleich. Now that we've discussed all of the things that I have completed and have off my hook, we're going to move on to the strung out projects, the things that are long-term, but long-term on purpose. Not just because I have them like laying around not doing anything, but because they are things that I am intentionally working on a little at a time, knowing that it's going to take me a while to get to the end. I decided to move my We Hook Wednesday pouches to this segment because I realized that they are ultimately a strung out project. So this week I did complete We Hook Wednesday pocket number 13 and 14, and these are the ones that go with the overview videos. The overview videos for We Hook Wednesday are videos where I take these completed pockets and I walk you through the stitches required on the finished pocket. So you do not actually see me stitching, I am merely pointing and speaking. If that is how you learn best, that is personally how I learn best, but I know that many people are visual learners and don't just want to read a written pattern and maybe hear a brief description. They would rather see the stitch by stitch, which has not had its ends woven in, has not its ends woven in yet. So these are pockets 13 and 14 of the stitch by stitch version of We Hook Wednesday. And in this case, I show you stitch by stitch how I make the samplery part. And then again, if you would like to see how to make the basic pocket part, you can find the instructions for that on the overview video or simply through the written instructions. But if you need a little bit of a walkthrough on how to do the samplery parts, the Stitch by Stitch series is there for you. The next thing that I have on my strung out list that I've been working on is my Yarn Tail Shawl. This is another series I am doing here on the channel where I read books, finish them, and then turn them into a chapter or a stripe on my Yarn Tail Shawl, which is ultimately a shawl that's going to be so cozy to wear this winter while I'm reading and wrapped up in all the stories that I've already taken part in. So, I don't know if I've showed this before, but we have the segment on Exit West, Matched, Stargirl, And then the red and the blue both go together for the book Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. These are further explained in the Yarn Tales videos, so if you would like to know what stitches I used, why I chose them, and the yarns and all that sort of good stuff, go check out the Yarn Tales video. I will go ahead and link it on the end screen for you. And the very last strung out thing I've been working on has actually been like one of my favorite projects of the week. Like, I've had to keep telling myself, Kendra, you have to stop working on this. And that is my scrap stash blanket. I don't know why I'm finding it so appealing right now, but I really, really am. So, when I showed you last week, I had been working on this strip here, and we were all the way over here with this stitch marker, another one of them that was made out of one of my first pairs of earrings. So, everything is basically Super Saver in these. However, this here is one of the Joanne brands of yarn, I forget, whatever their in-house brand is. And then again, we have Super Saver. This is Red Heart with Red Heart Soft in the Peacock, something like that colorway. I used this to make my niece her graduation from high school Afghan. It was, I did the, a sampler stitch along that the Crochet Crowd did the year I started crocheting. It was like the first big project I took on, and I had been crocheting. I started crocheting in February, and they started that in like March or April, and I decided, it must have been March, because I decided, hey, if I do this crochet along, I'll be done just about the time her graduation happens, and I got it done. But this is the one little piece that I had left from that yarn, so it is now my blanket, as well as this here, which is Deborah Norville Everyday Soft Worsted in the color Parfait. It's leftovers from my, well, this piece is actually leftover from when I made the Check Me Out hat design pattern for the Crochet Hangout, but I also made my Lodge sweater out of that same yarn. And then again, we have some Red Heart Super Saver in Dove, one of my favorite variegated yarns from Red Heart. So that is the end of stripe number, this is strip number 7 that is complete. And then I began strip number 8. And strip number 8 is actually complete also. So strip number 8, these here are part of a Premier Yarn sweet roll that I used to make my Tiny Textures blanket. Here is a bit of burnout mosaic that came out of something. Oh, you know what? I took this out to make the color progression match better on my Square Deal sweater. So that was newly in stash. And then we have some Super Saver, and this here is some of, it's another one of the Joann's Big Twist yarns. And I know the color name, they have a color called Birthday Cake, and this one's called Confetti. It reminds me of Funfetti Cake, and it actually is, there's another pattern I will eventually have coming out called the Unbirthday Hat and Fingerless Mitts that are made out of this yarn, and that is the scraps from the hat. Then we have just some Super Saver. The red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, rainbow Super Saver is torn out of the design sample I used when, I think it is actually one of the patterns that is never published. I wrote a pattern and made a tutorial for the Crochet Hangout, which is a, I think, basically now defunct website or something. But I made video tutorials for them, and I had made a wreath using, no, this is not from the wreath. I had made a scarf, which is a rainbow scarf with clouds on the bottom. Really cute. But I had showed a small version of the scarf in the tutorial, and when I took my design piece apart, I just put the pieces into my stash blanket, you know, in their nice little order. This yellow here is some Peyton's, and I believe it has a wool content. I don't remember what it is, but I used it to make my husband a hat last year. This had been yarn faired to me by our friend Mary, and I, yeah, made him a hat. I called it a capsule hat, and I look forward to making some more hats of that style this winter. And finally, this is some, oh, it's the Michaels yarn, Loops and Thread Charisma, I want to say. And this is out of another shawl pattern, which is part of a collection of shawls, which I have been working on for a while. And once I have the entire, like, collection done, I will release an ebook that has all of them. But I'm working on them one by one at this point, and that probably won't come out till the spring. So that is strip number 8. And I need 16 strips to complete my blanket, so I am officially halfway there, which is really, really exciting. And I believe that that is everything I have worked on this week. I feel like I got a lot done, but I didn't necessarily get a lot of what I told you I was going to get done. I spent a lot of time cleaning up my office this week, which is really useful and is going to make it a better workspace for me. If you can't tell, the mess behind me is less messy. Even though there's a lot of stuff still, it is more organized, and in doing so, I did some freaking and frogging. So I have some more projects that are going to be going on my hook, but I also have a lot of yarn that has come out of bad projects and been reclaimed. I will put in a picture here of what is reclaimed in this week's Freaker Frog. But this is where I'm keeping the bits for my scrap stash blanket. At one point this week, I had it completely empty of scraps. And then I found more scraps in my office, and I'm working my way through. I actually made myself sit down and work on the scrap stash blanket the other night because I could not get this box closed. And I like it because the box has the little, like, locking things on it. This is actually, we did tie-dyeing at Christmas, and I had bought this kit from Joann's on clearance, and it came with, like, the nifty box, which was, like, a real plastic box, not just, you know, like a lightweight one. So I, yeah, have used that for my scrap stash blanket, and I've been trying to keep it at a level where I can always keep this closed. So if it gets to be too much, I have to work it down till I can, you know, let it hang out and have room to grow. And really, this hole right here will be filled in with the next strip, so I need to keep working on that. My goals for this upcoming week is to start working on things in this basket. When I was cleaning up things in my office, I went through and found projects that I have showed you that have been on my hook that have not been completed. They are in here, as well as things that I chose during Freaker Frogs to move from, like, whip status, where they're, like, hanging out in the naughty corner, and put them on my hook. Well, this is the on my hook basket, and it needs to be empty. So, much as I would like to start new projects, I'm kind of making myself, like, go back and forth between, like, if I work on something new, I need to finish something out of this. If I work on something new, they need to finish something out of that. And I'm going to just try it and go, you know, as well as I can at doing that. Though I am going to be out of town for a couple of days. We're going camping, so I will probably just bring 1 or 2 of these projects that I think are, like, super fun and exciting right now, and I will just work on those when I get home. So my goal is probably to have 4 things out of this basket for next week to show you. That is it. Here on the end screen, you will find that link I said to the Yarntail shawl, as well as a link to my Etsy shop if you'd like to check it out. I had a really cute update last week with Kansas things, and this week's update has dragons and ladybugs and foxes. So go check those things out if you are interested, and I will see you all next time. Bye!